In a quiet countryside town, nestled among rows of lush orange trees, a chilling murder has shattered the peace. Samuel Rivera, a kind-hearted farmer and caretaker of this very grove, was found dead among his beloved trees. To the locals, he was a gentle soul, dedicated to his family and his land. But beneath the serene surface, long-hidden tensions were brewing. Samuel's death sparked a complex investigation, one that would uncover strained family ties, financial troubles, and secrets buried for years. Each clue, each revelation brings us closer to a truth that is both shocking and painful. Who took Samuel's life? And what could drive someone to commit such a terrible act? Join us as we delve into the mystery of murder in the Orange Grove, unraveling the dark truths behind this tragedy. Our story begins in a place that seems timeless, a vast orange grove in the heart of a quiet countryside. To most, this land was a symbol of prosperity and tradition, a tranquil sea of green leaves and bright, golden fruit. And at the heart of it all was Samuel Rivera. Samuel Rivera was not just any man. He was a cornerstone of this community. Known as a hard-working, generous farmer, Samuel devoted his life to this land. For decades, he had cared for this grove, nurturing every tree as if it were his own child. This grove was his life's work, passed down from his father and cared for with unwavering dedication and love.
Samuel was a good man, always willing to help others. There's not a person in town who hasn't tasted one of his famous oranges.
He kept to himself mostly, but he had a deep love for his family. Everything he did for them and for this land.
But as with all places and people, there were hidden tensions, secrets buried just beneath the surface. Despite his quiet life, Samuel carried burdens known only to a few. Samuel lost his beloved wife years ago, and with her passing, he grew more withdrawn. His only son, Liam, had moved to the city and rarely visited, leaving Samuel largely alone. His only family nearby was his sister, Clara. But even that relationship was strained by years of family disputes and unresolved resentment. Clara always felt that the grove should have been shared, that it was part of her birthright too. But Samuel saw things differently. He believed the land should stay whole, undivided by anyone else. This difference in belief simmered for years, building a quiet resentment in Clara. While she struggled financially, she felt her brother was overlooking her hardships as he sat on a fortune in land. Just days before his death, Samuel had met with a lawyer. Rumors circulated that he was planning to change his will. But what kind of changes? No one could be sure. And for some, that uncertainty was too much to bear. Then, on a quiet night, something unthinkable happened. Samuel Rivera, the man who had devoted his life to this grove, was found dead among his trees, his life taken in a brutal act of violence. As we step into this investigation, secrets buried beneath the orange trees will come to light. Was this a crime of passion, an act of revenge, or something even darker? Join us as we piece together the last days of Samuel Rivera's life and search for the truth in a mystery that haunts this grove. In the dim morning light, the orange grove lay silent and eerily still. The trees, heavy with ripe oranges, filled the air with their sweet scent, a sharp contrast to the unsettling scene unfolding beneath their branches. Police officers and investigators moved cautiously through the grove, marking off an area now cloaked in tragedy. On the damp ground, the lifeless body of Samuel Rivera lay sprawled between the trees, a haunting testament to the violence that had taken place in the night. Samuel, the well-known owner of this vast orchard, had been brutally attacked, left in the very fields he had spent years cultivating and tending. The investigators carefully examined every detail around the scene. Scattered, overlapping footprints were imprinted in the soil, suggesting a struggle, a silent narrative of resistance and violence. Samuel's hands bore fresh scratches, signs that he had likely fought back, resisting his assailant in the final moments of his life. Nearby, a blood-stained leather glove caught the attention of the detectives. This glove, abandoned at the scene, became an essential clue, the first tangible link to whoever had committed this brutal act. They quickly collected the glove for fingerprinting and DNA analysis, hopeful that it would soon lead them to the culprit. Around the grove, every detail was meticulously documented. Scratches on the trunks of nearby trees hinted at a possible chase or a desperate attempt to escape before Samuel fell. The investigators scrutinized these small traces, aware that even the tiniest detail might help piece together the story of that tragic night. As the forensic examiner conducted an initial assessment of Samuel's body, they suggested that he had likely been strangled before receiving a fatal blow to the head, the direct cause of death. Time of death was estimated to be around 10 p.m., hours after the grove had emptied and fallen into silence. Every indication at the scene pointed to a premeditated crime, a violent act committed in anger, or perhaps the result of a long-standing grudge. The silence of the orange grove, once peaceful, now held an ominous weight, becoming the backdrop for a chilling mystery. Behind the beauty of the trees, burdened with ripe fruit, lay a dreadful secret, a tale of violence and betrayal waiting to be uncovered. The investigators, alert to every clue, were prepared to piece together what had happened, but the darkness surrounding the motive and identity of the killer only deepened the suspense.
But before, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay updated when we publish new content for your spiritual growth.
Under the stark lights of the examination room, Samuel Rivera's body lay on the table as the forensic team began their detailed assessment. Dr. Elaine Thompson, the lead medical examiner, meticulously analyzed each injury, searching for clues hidden in the physical marks of violence. It was immediately evident that Samuel had endured a brutal encounter before his death. Bruises around his neck indicated that he had been strangled, likely as part of a struggle, and the multiple abrasions on his hands suggested defensive wounds. However, the fatal blow was a blunt force trauma to the head, strong enough to cause instant unconsciousness, if not immediate death. Dr. Thompson estimated the time of death to be around 10 p.m., a time that matched the solitude of the grove late in the evening. Meanwhile, back at the police lab, the investigators analyzed the blood-stained leather glove found near Samuel's body. The glove, left carelessly at the scene, was the first solid piece of evidence they had, but it raised as many questions as it answered. Who had worn it, and why had they left it behind? After initial testing, investigators discovered a partial fingerprint on the interior lining. They also collected DNA from the blood on the glove, which, after comparison, turned out to belong to Samuel himself. The presence of Samuel's blood indicated that the glove had likely been used by his attacker during the assault. As they processed the glove, investigators found another promising lead: a single strand of hair caught inside the lining. This hair did not match Samuel's DNA profile, suggesting a third party's involvement. The forensic team immediately moved to test the hair for any matches in the police database, hopeful that it could provide a direct lead. While the lab processed these samples, detectives began piecing together what they knew of Samuel's recent life. Friends and family had confirmed that Samuel had been involved in ongoing disputes over the ownership of the orchard, particularly with his younger sister Clara and his estranged son Liam. Both had their own motives. Clara believed the inheritance was unfairly divided, while Liam, who had a strained relationship with his father, was surprised to hear that Samuel had recently updated his will in his favor. These potential motives only deepened the mystery. Each piece of evidence, from the glove to the unexpected strand of hair, was slowly painting a picture. But was it a portrait of a long-planned act, or a spontaneous, emotionally charged crime? The investigators knew that only by examining every clue in detail could they begin to unravel the true story of Samuel Rivera's tragic death. The investigation into the death of Samuel Rivera gradually revealed deep, hidden mysteries in his personal life. After collecting initial evidence from the crime scene, the team turned to investigate those closest to the victim. First on the list was Clara, Samuel's younger sister. Once close siblings, their relationship had soured in recent years due to disputes over the inheritance of the orange grove, pushing them into a state of ongoing tension. Clara, a strong and independent woman, felt wronged by Samuel's control over most of the family assets, leading to frequent arguments between them. Detective Lopez, assigned to interview Clara, sensed a palpable tension upon arriving at her home. Clara appeared both saddened and resentful. She openly recounted her disputes with Samuel, admitting her feelings without hesitation. According to her, Samuel planned to keep the entire orange grove and leave her only a very small portion. This left Clara feeling betrayed and frustrated, but she insisted she had never considered harming her brother. However, Lopez noticed bitterness in Clara's words, suggesting that a motive could still exist despite her denials. Meanwhile, other detectives turned their attention to Liam, Samuel's only son. The relationship between Liam and his father had always been strained and distant. After his parents divorced when he was young, Samuel focused heavily on his business, largely absent from his son's life. Liam grew up in isolation, harboring simmering resentment towards his father. When called in for questioning, Liam appeared defensive and uncomfortable. He admitted to feeling bitter toward Samuel, but he showed little reaction to the news that his father had recently updated his will to leave him the entire estate. Meanwhile, the forensic team completed their analysis of the glove and hair found at the scene. The DNA on the hair did not match Samuel's, suggesting an outsider's involvement, which complicated the investigation. At the same time, the fingerprint inside the glove, cleaned and cross-referenced, did not match anyone in Samuel's family. Instead, it matched a known offender in the area, Carlos Sanchez, who had a criminal record for theft. Carlos Sanchez had once worked as a seasonal laborer in Samuel's orange grove, but was dismissed a year ago after being caught stealing. After losing his job, Carlos had left town, but the grudge against Samuel seemed to linger. Detectives quickly began to suspect this might be an act of revenge, and Carlos soon became the prime suspect. The manhunt for Carlos began that very night. With leads and tips from informants, police found Carlos hiding in an abandoned house in the outskirts of town. When he was arrested, Carlos initially denied any involvement in Samuel's death. However, when confronted with undeniable evidence, the blood-stained glove and his fingerprints, he began to falter. Pressured by the detectives, he finally admitted that he had indeed gone to the grove that night, intending to confront Samuel. Carlos confessed that he had wanted to intimidate Samuel, fueled by his long-standing anger over losing his job and livelihood. However, he claimed that the situation spiraled out of control when a physical struggle ensued. Samuel fought back fiercely, and in a panic, Carlos struck him with a fatal blow. After Samuel collapsed, Carlos fled in fear, leaving the glove behind in his haste. Carlos's confession closed a chapter in the investigation, but questions remained unanswered. Though Liam and Clara were not directly involved, their complicated relationships with Samuel shed light on long-standing familial fractures. The family's story, filled with unresolved resentment, had contributed to the situation that culminated in tragedy. In the end, Samuel Rivera left behind not only the orange grove he had cherished for a lifetime, but also a legacy of bitterness and unresolved tension. The orange trees would continue to blossom and bear fruit, but the grove was now haunted by painful memories. A place where a life ended in anger and justice was found, though too late. After Carlos Sanchez confessed to the crime, it seemed the case was coming to a close. However, the detectives felt there was still something unresolved. Although Carlos's statements matched the evidence, his motive seemed too weak to fully explain the excessive anger and violence that the crime exhibited. The detectives continued to dig into Samuel's complex relationships with his family, particularly Clara and Liam, to uncover whether anyone else might have played a role in the tragedy. As they analyzed Samuel's messages and emails, the investigation team discovered that, before his death, Samuel had received a series of threatening texts from an anonymous number. These messages warned him to relinquish ownership of the orange grove or pay the price. This raised the possibility that Carlos might have been only one part of a larger scheme, or perhaps even manipulated as a tool to carry out a carefully orchestrated crime. When questioned again about the threatening messages, Carlos revealed that he had met a mysterious figure a few weeks earlier. This person had promised him money if he would intimidate Samuel and push him to give up the grove. However, when Samuel resisted, Carlos panicked, and things escalated out of his control. The identity of this mysterious person remained unknown, but the detectives suspected that they might be connected to the long-standing family rifts. In the end, the investigation concluded that Clara and Liam may have been indirectly involved by inciting a third party, though there was insufficient evidence to charge them. The police closed the case with Carlos as the main perpetrator, despite the lingering mysteries that went unanswered. Samuel was gone, leaving behind the Orange Grove, but his legacy consisted of fractured family relationships and unsolved mysteries. For most, justice had been served, yet those within Samuel's family would remain haunted by questions of the true motives and the dark secrets buried beneath the orange trees. After the case closed and Carlos Sanchez was sentenced, Samuel's family remained engulfed in sorrow and confusion. While the investigation had reached its conclusion, the emotional scars and lack of trust among family members were far from healed. Although Clara was not charged, she faced lingering guilt and suspicious glances from those around her. She knew that the strained relationship with her brother had left serious consequences, and even though she was not directly involved, she could not shake the feeling of bearing some responsibility for Samuel's tragic fate. Liam, Samuel's only son, tried to move forward with his life, yet he was haunted by the shadow of his father's death. He realized that due to his distant relationship with Samuel, he would never have the chance to reconcile or clear up the misunderstandings between them. Samuel's will, which left the entire estate to Liam, now felt like a burden, trapping him in a painful past from which he could not escape. The Orange Grove, which Samuel had tended to throughout his life, had become a symbol of loss, regret, and unresolved family conflicts. Over time, this painful event drove a wedge within the Rivera family in ways they had never anticipated. Clara and Liam, the remaining members of the family, grew even more estranged after the case. Each had to cope with their own private grief and unanswered questions surrounding Samuel's death. Legally, the case might have been closed, but emotionally, the events in the Orange Grove that night continued to cast a shadow over their lives, leaving them with mysteries they would carry forever. In the end, the Orange Grove returned to its usual silence. But now, beneath its canopy, it held the memories of sorrow and the fragments of a broken family. To the community, the story of Samuel Rivera faded into the background as a past crime. Yet for his family, it was an indelible pain and a bitter lesson about family bonds and the value of forgiveness. The case of Samuel Rivera left behind not only indelible pain for his family, but also profound reflections for the community. This tragedy highlighted the devastating consequences that unresolved family conflicts can have, sometimes leading to irreparable loss. Hidden resentment and long-held wounds had trapped the Rivera family in a web of tension with no way out, ultimately culminating in a tragic ending. For Clara, the case served as a painful reminder of loss and the importance of family bonds. Her disagreements with Samuel had now turned into unshakable regret. For Liam, the haunting memory of his distant relationship with his father was a wound that would be difficult to heal. He understood now, in the absence of his father, that having loved ones close is something to be cherished, and that it is far better to resolve differences than to let them fester over time. The story of the Rivera family encouraged many to think about the true value of family connections, forgiveness, and the need to address conflicts positively. It served as a lesson on the importance of building and nurturing family relationships to prevent misunderstandings and grudges from driving loved ones apart. In the end, Samuel's loss became a wake-up call for both his family and the community. A reminder that sometimes, forgiveness and love are the only ways to preserve happiness and peace within a family. After the tragedy of Samuel Rivera, his family and the community strove to find peace and move forward. Clara, burdened with deep regret, decided to turn this loss into motivation for change. She began dedicating her time to community activities, especially programs focused on healing family relationships and reducing conflict. Participating in these social initiatives provided Clara with comfort and a sense of redemption, as she worked to help prevent other families from facing the same heartache her own family had endured. Liam, meanwhile, chose to take over his father's orange grove, not only out of responsibility, but as a way to reconnect with his late father. In the quiet, steady work of tending to the grove, he found a sense of solace, a small way to atone for the lost bond between father and son. Season after season, the orange grove became a symbol of renewal and hope for him, a place where he could remember his father and honor his legacy. For the community, the Rivera family story served as a poignant lesson. It reminded everyone that love and forgiveness are the keys to lasting happiness within a family. The story of Samuel Rivera and his family left a lasting impact, but it also opened up an opportunity for self-reflection, encouraging people to strengthen their own relationships. Although the past could not be changed, learning from it allowed everyone to build a more peaceful and hopeful future. After the storms of tragedy subsided, Samuel Rivera's legacy continued to live on, not only in the orange grove he had tended all his life, but also in the memories and lessons he left for his family and community. The orange grove had now become a symbol of Samuel himself, a man of strength, perseverance, and dedication to the things he cherished. To the family and community, the grove was no longer just rows of vibrant trees, but a reminder of his values and hard work. Clara and Liam slowly found comfort in honoring Samuel's memory through stories and cherished moments shared about him. Family gatherings became more than just times of reunion. They became occasions to reflect on and learn from the legacy he left behind. For Clara, that legacy was about forgiveness and compassion. For Liam, it was about persistence and responsibility to the family. Samuel Rivera's story and his beloved orange grove became a source of inspiration for the entire community. People realized that every family has its ups and downs, but only through love and understanding can they overcome challenges together. Though Samuel was no longer there, his legacy lived on as a constant reminder of the strength of unity and the enduring value of family bonds. His story would continue to resonate with those who knew and loved him, a lasting symbol of resilience, love, and the profound impact one life can have on others.